UW360 is proudly supported by BECU, a not-for-profit member-owned credit union. Pacific Office Automation, copy, print, workflow, and IT. Problem solved.
Hi, I'm Samantha Runt, and this is UW360. We're at the Burke, a natural history and culture museum with over 14 million objects, from dinosaurs to butterflies to contemporary Native American art. It was started back in 1885 by the Young Naturalist Society, a group of teenagers who love to collect things from nature. Today, the Burke continues its mission to create a better understanding of the world and our place in it. Later in our show, we'll give you a preview of an upcoming exhibit here. Also in this episode, we'll visit a couple of Washington's world-class wineries, take a tour of the historic Theodore Jacobson Observatory, and hear about exciting research in solar energy. We'll follow Seattle police officer and author Neil Lowe through tales of murder and mayhem. And in our first story, you'll meet two UW alums who joined the Peace Corps after graduation. March 1st was the 50th anniversary of this international icon of goodwill and good works.
It's basically just all the different camps and different activities I participated in the Philippines.
As a Peace Corps volunteer, Shauna Aaron learned a lot. For one, any day in the Philippines is reason to party, and the main dish at any true party is something Shauna was, at first, reluctant to eat.
Baboy lechon. It's basically just a pig roasting on a stick.
And volunteer Obi Pressman learned why asking villagers to simply plant a tree is not so simple after all.
I couldn't afford the 50 cents US that it would cost to buy a tree. 50 cents US.
Obi and Shauna, both UW graduates, each served 2 years in the Peace Corps, discovering strange foods, living without comforts we take for granted, and dealing with bouts of illness, even loneliness. Challenging? Without question. Worth it? Absolutely.
When you go to a developing country, a lot of the things that used to be very easy take a lot of work, like making dinner, like doing your laundry, like getting from school to home. So I became even more independent in a way that I never imagined.
And I was reached and touched in ways that I don't get to experience much in the US. The way that people interacted with me and befriended me was really raw.
So I hope you realize, and I know you do, that the future of the Peace Corps really rests with you.
Now in its 50th year, the Peace Corps has changed the lives of over 2,600 University of Washington graduates. In fact, among large U.S. colleges, UW ranks as the third largest source of volunteers since the Peace Corps began.
The UW is historically top 4 with a number of Peace Corps volunteers who have served. And then for 4 years running, it was number 1 in the country.
3 schools on campus offer a master's degree in conjunction with a 2-year term in the Peace Corps. And it was one of those master's programs, a degree in public administration, which drew Obi Pressman from a life as a successful high-tech entrepreneur into a life of international service.
I was doing very well. It was distinctly unfulfilling.
Obi spent a year studying on campus and then 2 years serving in Namibia. During that time, he helped local artists and businesses expand their markets and devised a way to get free Arbor Day trees to villagers unable to afford them. And when he first arrived, the village annually planted only a handful of trees.
And I said, hey, this is great, you're planting some fruit trees, but why aren't more trees being planted? Do people not want to plant these trees? And they said, no, we would plant the trees, but we can't.
By soliciting donations from friends back home, Obi offered free saplings to anyone willing to dig a hole and care for a young tree. In his final year, the plan paid off.
And that year, we planted more than 2,100 trees. And I remember there was someone who said to me, when we see these trees in 10 years, everybody's going to think of you, and we're going to call these Obi's trees.
We're not allowed to go to Mindanao.
For Shauna Aaron, the rewards of Peace Corps service are part of family lore. Her dad, as a young man, served in the Peace Corps. But Shauna's decision to follow his lead happened only after she studied abroad while completing a degree in international studies. Assigned as a Peace Corps teacher in the Philippines, she took on much more. The daughter of a deaf mother, Shauna put her signing skills to use working with deaf adults, giving them the tools to further their livelihoods and their rights.
I really wanted to say, you do have rights. You are part of a beautiful thing and a beautiful culture, and why don't you see, what you can do? And that was a really powerful part of my Peace Corps experience, working with that group of people.
Shauna admits adjusting to life in the Philippines wasn't easy. As with every Peace Corps volunteer, there was the inevitable run-in with the runs.
Everybody goes through it. Everybody talks about it. It becomes something that's funny. It's like, oh, how's your body today?
Both Shauna and Obi say the good far outweighed any inconveniences. They made lasting friends and tangible differences in the lives of others and came to better know themselves.
I mean, it is transformative. What people want, how people want to live. We all fundamentally want the same things. And that experience just made it so obvious to me that what I want to be doing with my life is working on that connection.
Any kind of person can go as long as they're really prepared for doing something really out of the ordinary, being flexible, and willing to give.
You can join the Peace Corps at any age. The oldest volunteer works in Morocco. She's 86. Now in our next story, 2 UW professors show us their research to make efficient solar energy cells that can be used to power just about anything.
Energy is the most important challenge facing our society today. We're going to need to replace 85% of our primary energy supply in the next 30 to 50 years.
Enter the organic solar cell, subject of a great deal of research and interest.
This lamp is a mimic the sunlight, so you can turn on the sunlight, then the polymer solar cell will convert the sunlight into the electricity to power the fan.
What's cooler than having a thin piece of plastic that turns sunlight into electricity, that can power your lights, your refrigerator, even charge up your electric car at some point in time?
Flexible solar cells made from organic plastics are lighter weight than the silicon solar cells we use now. And they're potentially less expensive to make and install, but they don't work quite as well, yet. Researchers at the University of Washington are looking at ways to make those thin films more efficient in converting light to electricity. The structural elements they're studying are on a nanoscale level, about 10,000 times smaller than a human hair.
It's how those features are aligned, how they're ordered, that controls the performance of these cells.
While chemistry department researchers determine how charges are transported, the materials science and engineering department looks at ways to design and manufacture a usable and cost-effective product. The goal is to be able to print large sheets of plastic solar cells using technology similar to newspaper printing.
From the economical point of view, okay, this can be potentially very cheap, okay, and potentially can be very cheap to operate also.
Right now, the cost of solar energy is not just the materials cost of the cell, it's the cost of the installation. And so the vision is we've got these plastic materials, the material cost is lower, they're lighter, they're flexible, the installation costs can potentially be much lower as well. You don't have to reinforce your roof, you don't need a metal frame, you don't need standoffs. So all of these associated costs can be driven down as well with these new thin film technologies.
This will be dramatic impact not only to economy but also to the environment. Okay, so this is dramatic, I think, the impact to the society.
Solar power can be a big part of solving the world's energy problem. If you're interested in learning more about solar energy research, you can attend a lecture and panel discussion on April 12th here on the UW campus. The topic is A New Dawn for Solar Energy. It's free, but you might want to register in advance to guarantee a seat. You can find a link to more information on our website, uwtv.org/uw360. And when we come back, we'll show you a great way to explore the stars with your kids. The Theodore Jacobson Observatory has been a landmark on the UW campus since 1895, when it was built to house a telescope purchased a few years earlier. A side note, until 1965, the UW's astronomy department only had one professor at a time. Theodore Jacobson, the fourth to hold that position, taught here for 37 years. Take a look at what the observatory offers today.
From spring through fall, an historic icon on the university campus opens its dome and its doors to the public. The sun is inflated and placed in the center of the solar system for a tour of the planets.
Every time we do that, here comes the sun, goes through my, goes through my head.
Ana Larson, a senior lecturer in astronomy at the university, readies star charts, telescope kits, and refracting glasses, while an army of volunteers prepares to share their passion for the cosmos with the community.
When a young kid puts their eye to the eyepiece for the first time and says, wow, it gives me cold chills.
Whoa, that's awesome.
It's open house night at the Jacobson Observatory, the second oldest building on campus, home to a telescope that's just shy of 120 years old. And twice a month, spring through fall, it's the center of community outreach to the stars.
The Jacobson Observatory has been here on the University of Washington campus since 1895.
The historic dome and telescope are big draws during the open house event, but believe it or not, the observatory was once shuttered and faced demolition.
And the alumni heard that the facilities department wanted to tear this place down. The alumni got up in arms and said, you can't tear it down. So the facilities said, what are we going to do? So they went to the astronomy department and said, can you do something with the facility?
Ana and student volunteers from the astronomy department hauled truckloads of garbage from the observatory, painted it, and reopened its doors in 2001. The telescope itself was cleaned and rebuilt by a member of the Seattle Astronomical Society. Members of the society are on hand during public events to answer questions and show off an observatory from a bygone era.
It's totally not electrical, it's totally mechanical.
The largely wooden dome is rotated and opened by pulling on ropes. It rides on 3 large ball bearings the size of cannonballs. The telescope tracks across the sky by way of weight-driven gears.
It's the only observatory, certainly in the western United States, that still has its original 6-inch telescope that is in operation, that's on its original mount and its original housing and everything. So that makes it unique.
While the telescope and dome draw the adults and the occasional aspiring astronaut, open house nights are all about the stars. If it's cloudy, volunteers give talks and answer questions. But if it's clear, volunteers from the university's astronomy program set up telescopes.
By going like that, this is the eyepiece.
Other volunteers, including aspiring astronomer Liv Humes, hand out refracting glasses, kits for sky charts, and easy-to-assemble telescopes.
How could you focus it?
This one, honey. The whole thing. Oh, sorry.
From there, it's a night of discovery for adults and kids, and a night of inspiration for the volunteers.
See it?
That's bright. Cool.
Why is it important to know our place in the universe?
And the one in the tree branches is...
Right in there?
Yeah.
That's Altair. It gives you the whole frame of reference for your entire life.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, it's so bright.
And it's just a beautiful planet. And we just realize how really small we are.
There are public shows at the Jacobson Observatory from March to November. For information about dates and times, you'll find a link on our website, uwtv.org/uw360. Next up, we're off to Eastern Washington to check out wineries.
Angela Jacobs was waiting tables in a Bellevue restaurant when she discovered something really interesting.
We were required to know the wine list, and so we'd have reps come in who would taste us on wine. The bartender at the time was working up at Columbia Winery doing an apprenticeship, and I was just like, you can make wine?
She made her first batch of Pinot Noir in 2001.
Put the grape skins in there and let it go.
And she was hooked on winemaking. But at that point, it was only a hobby. She had college to finish and a different career path in mind.
So I went to the University of Washington for the express purpose of studying sciences, and kind of got funneled into chemistry, and the backup plan was pre-med. My grandfather wanted me to be a doctor, but I also knew that went really well with learning anything I needed to know about making wine.
After graduation, the call of winemaking couldn't be ignored. Angela spent a few years working for wineries in California, Oregon, and New Zealand, then returned to Washington and began making her own wine on a very small scale.
I was making it in a basement where I lived, where the temperature was 60 degrees. So it actually worked out really well.
Fast forward through an MBA at UW's Foster School, where Angela learned business skills to combine with her science background. Today, she's living her dream at Wine Girl Wines, her nano winery near Lake Chelan.
Well, no, I just sort of thought it would be everything I wanted out of life. It would be the creativity, the art, the science. It would be just, I could design my own labels, which I thought was amazing. I could, live out in the farm area and grow my own food. I was really into that.
Angela is one of a growing number of young people whose passion for the wine business is contributing real dollars to the economy of Washington State.
The Washington wine industry is an incredibly dynamic environment right now. The industry has doubled in size in just the past 5 years.
There are over 700 wineries in Washington, making it the nation's second largest premium wine producer. Between wine sales, wages paid, and wine tourism, the industry has an annual economic impact of $3 billion within the state, and another $1.7 billion nationally. But for many winemakers, the business is about more than money.
I think most people choose it for the makeup of the lifestyle itself. It's a very passionate industry.
Well, the wine industry is great because it celebrates a lot of the fun parts of life. You get to celebrate food, you get to celebrate wine, you get to celebrate art, and they're all kind of interlinked.
10 years ago, John Blair's parents became involved with the Dunham family's wine business.
And one of the things I really love about wine is that it's got a nice balance of farming where you get to get your hands dirty during the day and you're out in the soil, and then at the end of the day you can clean up, dress up, and you have this amazing, beautiful product to enjoy at the end of the day.
In that time, Dunham Cellars grew from a 200 case per year winery to almost 20,000 cases a year.
There's a huge growth in the wine industry here in Walla Walla, and I got to witness that firsthand. And it always kind of played back and forth in my mind that I might one day end up in the business.
The retail and wholesale sales.
That day is coming soon, as the senior Dunhams and Blairs think about retirement.
Thank you.
When it's ready, and that's when you put the bottle. But
While Eric Dunham is the artist behind the wines, John is focused on growth. He's learning about winemaking while working toward a master's degree in business at the UW. Together, they have big plans.
We've got a good brand, so I think there's some pretty exciting growth prospects here, not only in the US, but also internationally. So my vision for the company is kind of taking this great foundation that's been established and going out and projecting that to other parts of the world.
If you'd like to know more about those wineries or about the Washington wine business, you'll find links on our website, uwtv.org/uw360. And now, take a look at what's on view here at the Burke Museum.
Bird calls are in the air and at the Burke Museum's new nationally touring exhibit, The Owl and the Woodpecker, on view March 19th through August 7th. Featuring photos by Seattle photographer and author Paul Bannock, the exhibit explores the habits and habitats of owl and woodpecker species found in North America. Hear bird songs, calls, and drumming sounds made by each of the featured species, and explore the conservation issues critical to the bird's survival. Bird wings and birds from the Burke collection will also be on view. As home to the greatest diversity of owl species in North America, Washington State is a natural location for the debut of this engaging exhibit. Catch it before it starts its national tour. That's The Owl and the Woodpecker, March 19th through August 7th at the Burke Museum on the University of Washington campus.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Neil Lowe had been a Seattle police officer for many years when he returned to UW-Bothell and discovered a love for writing. He's still a cop, but now he's also an author with a very interesting sideline.
This area was all sawdust and tide flats from Yesler's mill.
Seattle's history is often colorful, but not always pretty. Seattle police veteran Neil Lowe knows that better than most, and he likes telling people about it.
Right across the street, kitty corner from there, was a high-end brothel, Lou Graham's brothel, and she died of a sexually transmitted disease at about 40.
When not fighting crime, Neil is writing about it. His murder mystery novels are a mix of history and personal experience.
So you write about what you know, and I intertwined real stories or anecdotes that happened to me to flesh out this story, but I tie it in with a murder mystery. This is my academy class graduation picture.
Neil started his police career almost by accident. He was looking for a summer job to help pay for community college, and he ended up in the Seattle Police Department's cadet program. After 25 years or so in law enforcement,
Thank you much.
He felt that he needed a bachelor's degree to be promoted to captain. At 53, he earned that degree from UW-Bothell.
Well, that's me graduating from UW-Bothell.
During that time, he was inspired by two professors to develop his talent for storytelling.
Oh yeah, this is my favorite hangout.
Neil wrote his first book here on the second floor of the UW-Bothell Library.
This whole creative writing thing just, it more than met my expectations. But you don't learn everything you need to know from that class. It's a continuing education process. I can tell you of the half dozen or more, well, it's more than that, books that I've read on the writing process and creating characters and creating conflict and suspense and all that. But I learned how to do that here at the UW. I learned how to teach myself how to do that, and that's why my writing keeps better and the reviews keep getting better. My most current novel, he is the driving force behind that.
Research for novels turned up some fascinating stories of crime, corruption, murder, and mayhem in Seattle's past.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm Neil Lowe. I'm your tour guide.
So in addition to being a police officer and a writer, Neil now leads murder mystery tours through Pioneer Square, starting at the Seattle Police Museum.
We're getting closer to the picture I wanted to point out.
For example, there's the story of Chief William Meredith, who was asked to resign from the force in 1901.
He was accused of impregnating a contortionist who worked in the Tenderloin area at one of the places that he was trying to shake down for money.
The tours attract anyone who's interested in the more lurid parts of Seattle history. Some of the stories are fairly recent.
June 1st, 1981, two cannery union workers were trying to reform the union, and they were gunned down in this very building by 3 others.
Besides stories of lust, larceny, and lynchings, the tour includes one of Neil's books. He's working on his 4th mystery now, in his 5th decade as a police officer. And by the way, he did get that promotion to captain.
I'm having a really good time, but I enjoy what I do. It's good being the boss.
You can find out more about Neil Lowe's books and tours on our website, uwtv.org/uw360, where you'll also find links to information about all our stories and the Burke Museum. It's great for you and your kids. And that's it for this edition of UW360. You can catch this episode online, and of course we'll be back next month with all new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in April.